It is perceived in some quarters that fear-mongering and misinformation have taken root to manipulate the public into rejecting the tobacco bill. The new Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill is currently with the provinces for public feedback. Informal traders say the new laws could increase South Africa's unemployment rate, while concerns have been raised about the potential impact on emerging tobacco farmers. Professor Lekan Ayo-Yusuf is head of School of Health Systems and Public Health at the University of Pretoria and joins me now for a discussion. Professor, appreciate your time. Well, firstly, it is a bit of a long bill. What are the main objectives of South Africa's Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill, and how do these objectives align with the public health and economic considerations?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners. So the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Bill is essentially bringing together a couple of current laws already existing in South Africa, but I think it's important to note that this is not all new. It's actually bringing the current laws together in one, and that essentially extends to banning indoor smoking 100%, because currently it allows a 25% smoking area, and studies over time have shown that you are not able to use any technology to prevent smoke from coming into the smoking area or to the non-smoking area from smoking areas. The second one is to ban the dispensing of cigarettes from vending machines, which youths have access to unmanned. Thirdly, it's going to be banning displays at the point of sales, which we know now that it's actually a cue for a smoker who's trying to stop smoking and goes to a supermarket, and all of that display makes them want to start. And young people as well sometimes get access to cigarettes through those displays. Third, the fourth component of this is to introduce what we call the standard plain packaging, because the packages where the cigarettes are sold have been known or shown by research to influence how the expectation from the cigarette in terms of sensory experience, and therefore they smoke more. And finally is the regulation of electronic cigarettes or electronic delivery system, which will include electronic cigarettes, heated tobacco products, and the rest of it, which are currently not at all regulated.
So we've seen some progress in other countries in terms of various bans that have come out. How much has this gone in restricting new smokers or those that are smoking to carry on? Has it been effective?
Yes, it has been, and that's the main reason why South Africa has decided to move in that direction. Many countries have done this. I must say, the issue around the economic effect of introducing any tobacco bill. South Africa has got the history since 1993. The first bill, the current 1993 Act, was passed. And in fact, South Africa was ahead of many countries at that stage. Just imagine at that time, the suggestion was that the airlines were going to collapse financially. At that time, nobody could imagine flying 20 hours without having a smoke. But we now know that happens every time. And there are more airlines than we ever had in 1993. So we know there's always another exaggeration of the economic impact. Similarly, when we had the debate on the public smoking ban, it was said that all restaurants were going to close. We know that does not happen. We've got new businesses. So the reality is that when people do not buy cigarettes, because this effect of this will make them not spend money on cigarettes, the money they have does not disappear. They buy something else that goes back into the economy. The simple example is the 13 billion excise on cigarettes is paid by smokers if they stop smoking. If 50% of them stop smoking, it's 6.5 billion extra that is available to go to another part of the economy, whether it's buying more clothes, they employ more people, and that's how this works.
Okay, Prof. So let's focus a little bit on the alternatives, right? Vaping is one of those alternatives that came out when the bans on tobacco came about. Does this proffer an opportunity for greater innovation by entrepreneurs and those that are selling to tobacco products to go into alternatives?
So, first of all, the alternatives, particularly the e-cigarette, did not come about because of the ban. Just to correct that, they were on the market before the ban, the temporary ban in sales that happened in 2020. So the e-cigarettes came into South African market just about 2008. So they were been in the market for roughly about 15 years. I would say maybe 2010. What we have seen without regulation is that they've not made smoking go down. They've actually had youth picking up nicotine use, which was not there before. So based on evidence to the fact that our studies have shown that this has not helped South Africans to stop smoking beyond 6 months. Oftentimes by 6 months they relapsed. They had more relapse than those who did not use the e-cigarette. Having said that, we are asking for regulation not to ban this product. Should it happen in future that it does help people, even if it's regulated, they will still have access to it. For example, in the UK, they've been able to show if you put this product in a plain package, youth did not want to use it, but the adult smokers were still able to get wanting to use it. So it dissuaded youth from the appeal, and this is exactly what regulation would do. We already have smokeless tobacco as part of the current regulation. So we're saying there's no need to have all separate, so many legislation or legislative pieces all around for government to administer. You might happen that the regulation that would further emphasize or throw out the guidelines on e-cigarette might be different from that from cigarettes. But what we are discussing currently is that there should be a law to govern e-cigarette manufacturing and marketing.
Now, Prof, the bill aims to regulate electronic nicotine delivery systems. What are the specific provisions for vaping and e-cigarettes, and how do these align with international best practices that are regulating these products?
So what the bill seeks to do is to put in the e-cigarettes in the same legislative framework. That is, one, you would not be able to smoke this in public places because the idea is that you denormalize the idea of using smoke because a young person may not be able to distinguish that this is just a fashionable act of puffing. So you can't use it in your spaces. Two, the minister would have the authority to be able to decide on the nature of the packaging in terms of plain packaging and the warning that will be on it. So it might be then when the minister makes a regulation, for example, the smokeless tobacco snuff in South Africa, the same legislative framework applies. However, for smokeless tobacco, you only have one warning label that says it may cause cancer, and it does not rotate. In cigarettes, you have rotating warning labels. So you might have the same thing for e-cigarette. The warning label may be different. All the legislative provision is saying that there must be a warning label that must follow a particular pattern.
Now, concerns have been raised, Prof, about the enforcement capacity of the government regarding existing tobacco legislation. How can South Africa address these concerns before even implementing new changes?
So we need to learn from lessons from what has happened in the past. For example, one of the major concerns is around restricting public smoking. When those discussions were had, there was concern about enforcement. The experience in South Africa and many other countries is that those enforcements are usually not by police. It's what we call social policing. Once there is wide knowledge that it is not allowed, people by themselves will tell the next person, do not smoke close to me. If the person is having the permission, it's a different case. altogether. So we do not expect a situation where police goes round to look at people smoking and actually issuing them fines. We expect a situation where it becomes a norm to say you cannot smoke next to me. Or the fact that your smoke gets into my apartment because we share the same vent means you have to go out to smoke, and not because I've chosen not to smoke. I need to protect my health. So the government is going to be protecting people's health, or giving an environment where people are able to take control over their own health. So I'm not as worried about enforcement of those social norms that is going to be created by this legislation.
Now, this legislation speaks to tobacco products, but let's talk about marijuana. It's just a thought. How does that factor? Because it isn't tobacco, but can I smoke it? And what happens to secondary smoke? Is it governed by the same legislation, or is it not?
This legislation does not talk to marijuana or dacha. It talks to tobacco and related products, and the related products are defined clearly in the legislation on this definition. That is the electronic delivery systems, and does not talk about marijuana. So
let me come to this then, Prof. When we talk about smoking, smoking not permitted, is it about not smoking tobacco specifically, or is it about anything that can be ignited and smoked?
In this case, anything that can be ignited is defined in that legislation, in addition to the electronic delivery system.
Now, supporters will argue that
anything that can be ignited that is tobacco, by the way, it specifically talks to tobacco ignition and electronic delivery systems.
So now that smoking marijuana, I believe, is legal, correct me if I'm wrong, then
in a private space.
In a private space, so issues around secondary smoke and so on do not impact marijuana smokers or non-marijuana smokers, or certainly at least not the legislation.
Correct. Not this legislation.
Okay. Now, supporters obviously argue that the bill will protect non-smokers, children and pregnant women from harmful effects of smoking. Can you elaborate on the potential public health benefits of the bill, if I do believe they exist?
Correct. So currently, there are 31,000 South Africans that die every year from tobacco-related illnesses that are age 35 and older. So we do not, usually the statistics from Statistics South Africa, which the MRC has used in computing this, talks to 35 years and older, and these are people in the productive years, already working in the economy, and they die prematurely because data has shown that compared to non-smokers, smokers would die 10 years usually on average younger. And therefore, there's an economic cost if you're working and you're not able to contribute to the GDP, or the taxes that you would have paid is lost. All of that put together with those who are alive and are being treated for their conditions sums up to about 42 billion rand every year, which is about 1% of the GDP. So it is a significant economic cost that many people do not understand, over and above the fact that when you lose a breadwinner or a loved one, the children may not be able to go to school. So there is both social and economic cost. And of course, the argument that the industry pays about 13 billion excise taxes clearly does not match up with the 42 billion that is lost to productivity, loss of productivity from death or taking care of those people. And we have always argued that if we do not control tobacco use, we would not be able to sustain the NHI. The expenses of trying to treat everyone rather than just doing a checkup would collapse the program. So it is important that we get this right and pass this bill for public health reasons and of economic reasons as well.
We've been unpacking the new Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill with Professor Lekan Ayo-Yusuf, who's Head of School of Health Systems, Public Health at the University of Pretoria. Professor, appreciate your time this afternoon.